Everybody has an opinion about the Bible, and it has been attacked since it was completed. It is still attacked by many today who try to discredit the Bible. In the last 20 years that when I started studying the Bible, I have encountered many people who have hesitations, and I think they're valid questions about the Bible. A lot of people have asked me and defended their opinion about how they can't trust a book that is so old because it might have been altered. How do we know we still have what was originally intended? And I would like for us to discuss that, the trustworthiness of the Bible, as well as whether or not its contents help its readers. On Christian-research.org, it says that 50 copies of the Bible are sold every minute. That's over 1 million every 2 weeks. Also in the Guinness World Records, it says the Bible holds the title as best-selling book of all time. With these facts, we can definitely agree, I think, that the Bible has had major impact in the world. Not only in the world history, but also in our world today. In the Guinness World Records, it also says that between the years of 1815 and 1975, recent estimates suggest that over 5 billion copies of the Bible were distributed. Now, the popularity of the Bible won't convince you if your question is whether or not the texts are trustworthy and genuine and close to the original at least. So the second point I'd like to bring up is ancient literature. A lot of people also say that, well, we don't have the originals, so how can we trust what we have? And in the Institute for Religious Research on the website, it talks a little bit about the expectations for ancient literary works. And having the originals is not one of the expectations we have. Because even the materials that were used back then, even just by using them a lot during a lifetime, you wouldn't expect them to be in very good condition at the end. Our books today might go a little longer, but even our books today wouldn't go 5,000 years, or even close to that. Here I have some pictures of the Dead Sea Scrolls, according to CBS.com. And you can see how deteriorated they are. But the reason why I bring it up and would like for us to consider is the second point that I like to bring up about ancient literature, which is the copies that we might have to study and to try to determine what the original said. So if we found 2 copies of one text, an ancient text, one of the first things that would be done and start telling us some things about what was originally intended, or the original contents of this literary work is a comparison, a simple comparison. We try to see how is the first one different from the second one. And if we have some differences, in the case of having 2 copies, we can't really tell which one was in the original, and we might just go with the older one. But in the case of the Bible, we don't have only 2 or even 3 or 4. We have hundreds to compare for the same texts. So a lot of people have dedicated their lives even to translate, but also to study and do what is called textual criticism of these texts, to see what the originals said. And so the quantity of text that we have available, and also the age of some of the texts that we have, for example, the Dead Sea Scrolls, according to CBS, were about 2,000 years old. This definitely sets the Bible at a different, puts the Bible in a different place as far as ancient literature goes, and I think we can at least appreciate the uniqueness of the Bible in this aspect. Now, the third thing that I'd like for us to consider, I think, is the most powerful one, which is prophecy. The Bible has hundreds of prophecies that were said or written hundreds and hundreds of years before they were fulfilled. For example, in Micah chapter 5, verse 2, it says that Jesus, or the Messiah, was to be born in Bethlehem. And then in Matthew chapter 2, verse 1, in the New Testament, hundreds and hundreds of years after that, it states that Jesus was born in Bethlehem. In the book of Hosea, chapter 11, verse 1, it says, and he rose and took the child and his mother by night and departed to Egypt. So it's talking about how it says, when Israel was a child, I loved him, and out of Egypt I called my son. So it's talking about how God called his son out of Egypt. That's hundreds of years before Matthew chapter 2 was written, and then it just tells us about the persecution or the killing of the babies around Bethlehem that Herod had imposed, and how they fled to Egypt, and then when Herod had been deceased, then they came back to Israel. So it actually says, this was to fulfill what the Lord had spoken by the prophet, out of Egypt I called my son. Also in Isaiah it says, he was despised and rejected by man. Now in John chapter 1 verse 11 it says, he came to his own, and his own people did not receive him. And we could go on and on about these prophecies that have been fulfilled. And the impact of the Bible is not over yet. It's still impacting many people's lives, and it has changed my life. And millions of people would share the same story or similar stories. It's also held as the Word of God by more than 1 billion people. And that wouldn't have been enough to convince me if it had not changed my life and given me hope and peace with God. So I'd like to, I'm confident that the Bible and its contents have the power to do the same for you. And I'd like to urge you to, next time you see a Bible, to open it up and read, because it can definitely change your life as well.